So this was HES versus Arclaw with HES taking black. Let's take a look. Yep, all looks good so far. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but usually you don't see this move at S16 anymore. The idea being that playing on the second line so early is a little bit too slow. So we'd rather take maybe third or fourth line moves by maybe enclosing over here or attaching at R16 is more common. Not a huge mistake. There's a couple like more specific reasons why you wouldn't necessarily play this move, but by and large, it's not something that you see at the top levels anymore. It's more of a special case Joseki. I think here I would be inclined to break up. I think this is going to sound a little weird, but White's formation is, I think, even though it's less developed, it's mapping out a much larger territory than Black's formation over here, right? Because Black is relegated towards just the sides, whereas White is kind of mapping out with this move. I think more of the board. The stones are a little bit higher. It's kind of mapping out maybe like 60% of the board, where Black's mapping out 40% of the board. Obviously, Black's territory is maybe a little bit more defined, but I think because of that, I would rather go for maybe this corner approach or this corner approach as opposed to a side move over here. Because I don't want my opponent to get a really nice development on their side of the board. That, and we generally regard corner moves as larger than side moves because you need less territory, you need less stones to capture more territory. So playing a side move so early on maybe is a little bit questionable. So kind of in that same vein that we just talked about or that I should say that I just talked about, you want to play corner, side, center, right? So you have all the corners have been taken, so now you're going to play a side. That makes sense, right? Now you're moving towards the center, right? Well, we have so much space here. Maybe it's a little bit too early to really be focusing on the center. Obviously, this black stone is not going to have any issues living here. There's so much room on both sides for it to live. And so for that reason, playing a move in the center so early on that's not necessarily guaranteeing territory might be a little bit questionable. Because what you're basically doing is allowing this black group, this black stone over here to make solid territory over here, potentially expand its position, and you're not necessarily getting real center influence out of it. And even here with Black playing at N3, if you're not actually mapping out center territory here and Black's able to take away all the area that you're mapping out, this seems like a kind of a questionable move. That makes sense? I'll take silence.
Oh yes, cool. Yeah, sorry.
That's cool. So pincer here, yeah. And you can see how these stones, this E10 stone and this H3 stone, don't really interact as well as you'd hope they would, right? Like you wouldn't really, if you already had the H3 stone, would you play at E10? Probably not. You'd probably rather, let's say this was the variation. You'd probably rather have a stone over here that's actually mapping territory as opposed to putting something in the center. Yeah, and again, do these two stones work together well? Not particularly. You'd rather, if you already had the C8 stone, you'd probably rather pincer at C12 and try to separate the stone, or you'd probably rather try to protect this side over here. I do think that this is a very large move for Black, though. It's keeping pressure as a potential attack on this E10 stone later on, so that if White were to play something like this, Black could separate this stone. And it also prevents White from getting an attack and actually making good use of the stone.
Yeah.
So maybe Black ignoring over here is maybe a little bit questionable. I also think that if you're going to play on this side, it really should be here. And the reason for that is it gets a really nice attack on these stones. It takes away a lot of the eye shape that these stones would naturally map out. If you play here, White gets to play here, Black gets to play here. And now White can try to maybe attack these two stones. So I think really just getting taking away the eye shape here is probably more important. There's a lot of Aji that exists here.
Okay.
So, and even though you're trying, I think, to mimic what would have happened had you played R10, there is a difference in this. There is this cutting point here that's going to really affect whether or not this stone's actually going to connect out to the stone over here. So something to be mindful of, because if you already had the stone at, let's say, here, there's no cutting point.
Yeah. Okay.
So these, Arclaw, do you want to maybe talk about these sequences and what you were trying to accomplish here? And maybe if we can see if there's maybe a better way to go about it.
Oh no, actually, I had no plan.
Okay.
Well,
so
your lack of plan worked well because I was hemmed in.
Yeah, until the end. I'm so sorry about that. Yeah, I'm like a TA for a class, and like there was an issue with one of the assignments, so I needed to like quickly fix something. So
I love it.
yeah.
No. So yeah, I mean, my thought that you were doing here was you were trying to seal black in and maybe get some influence to come back and attack this group later. And I think that would have actually been not a bad idea, right?
Okay.
Like this kind of concept of let's build a little bit of strength over here, keep black sealed in, and then come and play here to make it so that these two stones are weaker is actually a pretty good idea. I don't think that these exchanges in the way that you did them were maybe the best though. So what I would have done probably is to, I may have started from this side. And the reason why I can do this is I can get a much nicer wall here and not allow my opponent to get a tiger's mouth to come outside. So this is a much better wall than the variation we just showed. So I think your idea was good, even though it was kind of just spur of the moment. That said, though, I think that, again, we really want to be focusing on this area of the board, or directly, maybe jumping out and playing here to try to attack these two stones is another way we can think about it. So I think that your idea of getting some outward influence was a good one. Maybe the way we went about it was the best way.
Okay.
And making these exchanges without actually getting these exchanges are not positive exchanges because you lose out on any aji you have here, right? Because something like this could happen, and now black is losing its territory here. So these are exchanges that are aji keshi. If you don't know the phrase, that basically means getting rid of aji. And aji is something that you want to maintain for as long as possible. It's a very potent weapon. There's a great proverb that I heard, which is if you're facing down two enemies and you have one bow in your quiver, or if you have one arrow in your quiver, where do you want the arrow? You still want it in your quiver because that fear of your two enemies chasing you down is they're not going to come after you if they know that you can kill one of them. So you can kind of put both of them on edge and keep that for later. So because of that, again, maybe playing this right now might not be the best thing, or coming back and attacking the stone would be a little bit safer. So unfortunately, this move I think just gives black a little bit of nicer shape. If something like this happens, it's going to be pretty hard for white to actually kill this black group. Now black's alive and probably going. It's either going to be able to run out or just live locally. So I think it's going to be pretty tough to actually kill this group. So maybe attaching here was kind of the wrong way. What I would again probably want to do is focus on this S10 move. You could also try to just seal the group in, and maybe use some of that outward influence that you're trying to build up before as well. This is another way you could think about playing, because black's going to have to spend a few moves in order to live here, and now you've actually mapped out a little bit of center influence. Yeah, so here you mapped out the center influence, but black's easily alive on the side. So this is actually, interestingly enough, this S5 move is actually pretty small right now. I'd much rather focus on the outward influence here. If black chooses to play something like this, it's actually not that much territory, and you can actually build up quite a lot on the outside over here. So coming back and protecting here is not that big a deal.
Okay.
It looks big. It looks like you're allowing your opponent to get captured and you're keeping this group centered. But I think because of this center influence that we've built up, we want to focus on that a little bit more. And I think black, playing to R2 again was kind of questionable of, let's focus more on this center influence and actually do something with this area that we built up. Or again, protect at D12.
Gotcha.
So came back at C13, good move. Yep, love it. So maybe this move is a little bit too, what's the word I would say? I think it's focusing on this one stone too much, because now what's happening is that black's going to probably be able to live in the corner without too much issue. So if I were white here, I would probably try to stop this black group from living. If black wants to try to fight it out, you can very easily attack this outside, and this black group is not alive yet in the corner. So I think blocking the eye space for this stone is more important than just keeping this stone disconnected. Because even if black tries to do something like this to try to connect underneath, you can still stop the connection. That makes sense?
Oh yeah, I thought we were supposed to like try to kill groups though.
I mean, that's part of it, but you're trying to kill a group in the same way, right? The way that you kill a group is to take away its eye space. And that's what you're doing here, right? This is not a bad move, but it's not necessarily killing, because now black can still come out and play here, right? So it's trying to separate this one stone, but it's also, this one stone still has a lot of life left to it.
Okay.
Yeah, after these exchanges, this black stone is all but dead, and probably not worth trying to save right now. Anything that you do here is potentially a little bit of Aji Keshi, where again, Aji Keshi is getting rid of the Aji that you can play later on. It's possible that it would be better for black just to play here, right? Like if something like this happens, it's not clear that this group is locally dead. So you have some Aji left in the corner. It can actually take away some of your opponent's points. So for that reason, I probably wouldn't make these exchanges unless I really need to make eye space. I'd probably be focusing on playing a move like this at a D12 to try to both escape with this C10 stone and put more pressure on this C13 stone. Okay. Because who knows, later on that, let's say something happens here, right? Just both sides get out, no big deal, right? Later on, would you still want this exchange to be here where this stone is that much weaker? Probably not. You'd want to play here and try to make some eye space.
Right.
And now it's possible that this group might be able to live in the corner. Okay. I want to be a little bit mindful of time. I know I'm not necessarily giving you guys the same that I gave the first game, but was there something specific that you guys wanted to discuss, or would you rather just me do another 10 moves or so?
I will leave it up to Rose. Is there any part of the game that you'd like Michael to focus while we still have time?
No, the next 10 moves is fine. I did think that, like, for me at least, N4 was like a big move. So playing that instead of the S5 is, I guess, better, like for like the timing wise.
M4 you said? Excuse me.
N4, yeah. N4.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think, yeah, N4 would have been really a much nicer move here, because again, it's trying to, like, you made maybe a questionable move here at this E10 stone, right? So like we're trying to make good use of our stones that may not have been perfect earlier on. And so when we're playing, we want to make sure that we're actually using that, right? If we're allowing our opponent to break up our earlier moves and make them look silly, that means that they're using their stones more efficiently than we are. So trying to maximize efficiency is often more important than just a small little gain in territory here or there.
Okay, so you don't think like E10 helps with like a possible further invasion for like white playing on the top group?
I think E10 does help, but it's again side center or corner side center, right? And do you know what I mean by corner side center? Like we prioritize the corners because you can use less stones to capture more territory. Maybe it's worth illustrating that. So sorry to. All right, so I'm going to use 8 stones here, and I get to capture 12 points in the corner, right? And I'm gonna use those same same 8 stones on the outside. Oops, sorry. Ah, sorry. So again, using those same 8 stones on the outside, and I'm only getting 4 points here. If I were to do the same thing in the center, I'm only gonna get 2 points. Actually, not even 2 points. I would get, yeah, I would get 1 point here. So again, kind of that efficiency. So when we're going back and saying, you know, I don't want to harp on too much on E10, but you know, again, just kind of a good rule of thumb is corner, side, center. And so when I was complimenting the moves or saying which moves I thought was better, it was, okay, let's focus on, instead of playing at K16, let's focus on playing P4, right? Instead of playing E10, let's focus on playing N4, right? That, and so, you know, again, it's kind of focusing, like why we can see that C8 might be a little questionable when P2 is available, right? So something like that.
Okay, okay.
Uh,
Oh, actually, yeah, I remember playing E10 because I thought it, like, black was also growing, so I thought playing E10 like gives me some more of the direction to like also make some points, but should I just focus on like making more defined territory at this time?
I
Okay.
think at this stage, yes. Because black already has the stone at K3, you're not going to be able to get the entire center,
Okay.
right? Had black maybe played a move like this, I can see this being a little bit more advantageous, but even still, I think that probably expanding your territory over here and kind of solidifying it would be more important.